This episode is brought to you by Camilla Najat with Exit Realty Metro.
Camilla Najat is an experienced real estate agent who prides herself in finding the perfect home for her clients. Camilla can help you with a comparative market analysis to help determine the value of your home if you're planning on selling, or help you determine the going rate for the neighborhood you're moving into. She can also work with you at your pace.
You can reach Camilla by calling 902-880-8429 or email camilla@exitmetro.ca.
Also, you can find her on Facebook at Camilla Najat, Exit Realty Metro. This is Matt Conrad.
And this is Mike Tobin.
Welcome to the Afternoon Pint. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, cheers.
And a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
There you
All
go.
right.
2024.
I know.
Yeah,
Hey,
2-4.
it's gonna be a good
Happy
year.
2-4, everyone.
Yeah,
And,
2-4.
welcome back to the Afternoon Pint. We're now officially in season 2.
Yeah, season 2.
Hard to believe, eh?
I know.
You're 2 years old.
2 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Mike Tobin here, Matt Conrad here, and we have Dr. Sylvain Charlebois. So yeah, thank
Good job. Thank you so much for pronouncing my name.
you. No problem. Yeah, that's if I didn't do that, my wife would not be happy with me.
Is she French?
Quebec City. Yeah.
Okay. My wife is from Quebec City as well.
What part of Quebec City?
Sainte-Foy.
No way. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my wife's family kind of when I met her, the family was all living in Charlebois.
Wow. Okay. That's a beautiful region. Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Very much.
Beautiful skiing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Saint
yeah,
Anne, and then you have the...
going up through there and not Charlebois. Not Charlebois. Sorry, my mistake. They were up in Stoneham, and then moved
Stoneham, okay.
to skiing there, and then they moved down to when they were when I met her it was Charlebois.
Charlebois, okay, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. It's my
Lovely
mistake.
place, yeah.
Yeah, but also that way Saint Anne, all that stuff. Really great brewery out there. Brasserie Charlebois, Brasserie Saint Anne. Beaupré. That's what it is.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Brasserie Beaupré. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's great. Yeah,
All
probably.
right. The listeners that don't know who you are,
Yes.
maybe just give us a little introduction about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Sylvain Charlebois. I come from Farnham, Quebec, and there's actually a brewery now called Farnham, and they have really good beer. Actually, it started after I left. I left Farnham when I was 17 years old, so only 5 years ago.
Nice.
No, I'm just kidding. A long time ago. And joined the military. I'm an RMC grad.
Okay.
Rolled
I saw
Military
that.
College, yeah. And then moved on, did a bunch of things, and became a lobbyist for the food industry. And when you're a lobbyist, you get to learn all of the moving parts, who gets to decide, who gets to dictate what we drink, what we eat. And I really just fell in love with the food industry that way.
It's a fascinating business.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's really mind-boggling how much people don't know about the food industry, or probably even the brewery industry. I mean, it's very opaque for a lot of people.
Right.
And then I went back to school, did my master's, did my PhD in food distribution policy, and I've been having fun since. And my first academic appointment was in Saskatchewan. Yep. Actually, all of our kids were born in Saskatchewan, except one. We have 4. Our son was born in Quebec, but our 3 daughters were born in Saskatchewan, then left Saskatchewan to join the University of Guelph,
Okay.
which is really the Food University of Canada. Lots going on
Really?
there.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's really, oh my goodness, they have so much money. It's just, like a lot of, the Ministry of Agriculture in Ontario give all of its money on research to Guelph. Yeah, it's so when you're a researcher there, you're very well supported. And then finally, in 2016, we decided to move east to Halifax because we just love Halifax. We thought it was going to be a great place. It is a great place for our kids. And so we've been here since 2016.
Awesome. And you teach it.
Yeah. You teach
So I teach. Really, teaching is a small portion of what I do for a living.
Okay.
And the bigger portion of what I do for a living is to run a lab, a research lab. So we have 15 to 17 people working on the lab on all sorts of projects. I mean, it varies from BC salmon farms to assessing the value of farmland in the United States to assessing how much local foods cost versus imported foods. I mean, we work with governments. We still work with the Nova Scotia government on food policy. We work with the feds, the Bank of Canada, Health Canada, so the Auditor General.
Amazing.
So we've been busy.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, it's been an interesting few years. If you think we've had a pandemic, which
Yep.
obviously
Really, I didn't notice.
which obviously disrupted food disruption quite a bit.
Yeah.
The distribution,
And it brought people to, to think differently about food. All of a sudden, I know a lot of people who just, I'm thinking more about food now, and I'm wondering where food is coming from, what goes on, and
avocados right on the countertop. I've never thought about them too much until after 2021. Yeah,
exactly.
Right, and so many others.
Oh yeah,
I will say avocado ice cream is actually really good. I do like it.
Yeah,
My wife makes a chocolate
avocado ice cream.
Chocolate avocado. She makes it at home. Chocolate avocado ice cream.
avocado.
Cool. I never heard of
fantastic.
it.
Wow,
It's fantastic.
Andrea puts it on toast. We have it on like toast every now and then with like birdseed.
Well,
It's really good.
okay, no, listen.
sounds bad, but it's
being
good.
being a big Tom Brady fan, the whole avocado thing was a big deal for him for a long time.
Okay.
And there's 1 year for Christmas. You'd probably find it pretty interesting. He has this TB12 method. He has a cookbook and his whole method about nutrition and things like that. And I got it for Christmas 1 year. And there's some recipes in the pack. And we just kind of started making. We tried looking through some, but.
Not to go too far off point, but he said he doesn't eat red fruits.
Yeah,
And
red fruits or vegetables.
Red fruits or vegetables.
So like peppers and tomatoes, he doesn't eat them because of being an athlete and everything. The red fruits like strawberries, peppers, and all that stuff create inflammation. And he's found that since not eating those, he's been able to, like, his body's healed better, faster. All that. Yeah, so it was the science behind it's pretty interesting.
a lot of people.
Whether it's real or not, I don't know.
They're self-conscious about food. The other night I was in Toronto having dinner with a friend. He's 69 years old, just became vegan
Oh wow.
at the age of 69.
What a weird time to make a change.
He started reading on how agriculture got industrialized, and he just felt it wasn't right for him, and so he decided to just move away from animal proteins, which I thought was really interesting for sure. And as a researcher, of course, you have to respect how, like, different diets and how people make decisions,
Right,
because food is very personal.
Very much,
Very
yeah.
cultural, personal,
Family,
traditional.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I always found, like, it's weird, like, the foods that they tell you, there's foods they tell you shouldn't eat, foods that they should eat or moderate or whatever. And, here we are having some beers, and yet you have the island of Sardinia, which is like the highest, like, concentrated blue zone, where people are living well into their hundreds, and yet they're drinking every day and they're having pasta every day. I mean, they're eating fish.
Yeah.
And they're like literally couples living into their hundreds.
50% of people on Earth will have fish as their primary source of protein.
Really, 50%.
Yeah, and when you look at the Atlantic, we live off fish and seafood because of our economy.
Of course,
but the level of consumption here is not there at all. Like, most people just don't eat fish and seafood because they can't afford it.
That's the other thing too.
There's a bit of a paradox with our economy here.
That's another thing that's kind of, I think, going back, I guess, to the pandemic, is like food costs have obviously gone up and seem to have gone up quite a bit.
And I have some bad news for you. Avocados are up 15% this year. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Dear.
That ice cream just got more expensive.
But there are two things that are priced the same as last year:
What's that?
peanut butter,
Okay.
and,
Yes.
and bananas.
Oh, bananas never change.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
Rarely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've heard that pork is on the decline. Is that true?
It was.
Okay.
Now last month or so, we're seeing some cuts becoming more expensive.
Okay.
We are expecting pork to remain an affordable source of animal protein.
Yeah.
Unlike beef. Beef is way up.
Yeah, it seems that way.
But pork is relatively affordable, and chicken was hit by avian flu, so that was more expensive
Right.
than last year, and turkey as well. So people over Christmas probably noticed that they had to pay a little bit more for their birds.
Do you know what though? What I found, at least with chicken, and this is not me being a researcher, this is me just being a consumer, is chicken breast seems to be way up. But if you buy a whole chicken, it seems to be not as expensive.
No, I would encourage people to buy the whole thing.
That's what we've been doing. If I see it
At
if I see chicken-
Costco.
or Costco, but I mean, like even like it wherever. But I've gone and if you can find a whole chicken. I found some whole chickens for like $7, and I'll just buy like 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah.
And just put them in the freezer.
Yeah.
Just go through it. You roast them. You can, slow cook them, whatever, right? And a whole chicken will last you 3 suppers.
Yeah. Well, with higher food prices, because people became more strategic.
We definitely have in our house.
About storing,
Yeah.
about how to prepare food, how
Less
to
wasteful. There's been some positive effects there, right?
exactly
Yeah.
how do you repurpose food with your waste and
Absolutely.
leftovers?
100%.
In terms of everything that's going on now, and maybe you can't answer this, but or maybe it's just impossible to answer, but where do you see this all going in 2024?
Yeah.
With the way that food just seems to be on the rise.
Well,
I know, we're
I'd say
now or something with
so. In terms of prices, specifically, I think that 2024 is going to be a much easier year for most people.
Okay.
In fact, when you look at commodity prices and when you look at what's going on around the world, I actually do see prices stagnate a little bit, which is not necessarily bad news. And so it's going to be good news for Walmart, because Walmart will strive when prices, because the thing about Sobeys and Loblaws, they can't afford to bring down prices.
Right,
But
yeah.
Walmart with its logistics can for a while.
Just because it's a juggernaut?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so it is. I think it's gonna the tide will change. I think more consumers will have a little bit more power in 2024. So it's going to be a much better year than 2023 was really a horrible year. Yes, because of food prices, but what we've noticed is because people are spending so much money making sure they keep a roof over their heads.
Right.
Mortgage payments,
Yes.
rents.
Yes.
Rents have gone up at 12% year to year.
Crazy.
So they're spending less on food.
Yeah.
So they're spending less on, because if you need to trade down, you trade down on what?
Right.
Food or shelter?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easier on food, right? On shelter, you have to move. You have to go see your bank, or you have to have someone else move in with you.
Right.
So
You put a lot of interesting points. I won't get into them, but on your Twitter or the X account, I should say now, right? I've been following that for a while.
yeah, have you? Okay.
Yeah, and listening to what you have to say. I mean, it all makes sense. Something on your most recent podcast that really struck with me was your support for the farmers markets and how you work this into the equation of an affordable food solution for many people.
Yes.
You said it's working. You actually use Nova Scotia as a positive
Yes.
example here.
Yes.
And I believe, was it Ontario as well?
So the programs that do exist right now are in Nova Scotia right here.
Yeah.
Which really inspired me to kind of lobby the government. I testified before Parliament a couple of weeks ago talking about Nova Scotia. Montreal has a program similar to what we have here, and BC as well. In BC, it's provincial wide over 5 years. They spent about $1 million to help 10,000 families.
That's pretty good.
Wow.
If you want to
Think
get
about
a
it.
bang for your buck, because a lot of people are talking about guaranteed minimum wages,
Yes.
and I think there's some merit there. We need to evaluate some of these policies, but to help people right now, right away, while supporting farmers, the best way to do it is to implement food bucks.
Yeah, and it also reduces that carbon footprint that's so sacred as well, right?
Exactly.
I'd much rather see more people buying local and less carbon tax. I won't get to it.
No, we won't get into that. But,
get into that.
but realistically, though, like even I've been having conversations with my wife lately. Even I never ever thought I want to be a farmer. My wife would.
Sure.
But I'm kind of like, do we want to get some chickens? Like, do I want to build a greenhouse? Like,
Really, you're thinking about it.
I've just been thinking about it. Like, I have a buddy of mine who built like a really neat little greenhouse that he had. And I have a bunch of wood that we did a renovation in the bathroom. So I have a bunch of like 2x4s and stuff left over.
Interesting.
And I'm like, maybe I want to do that because like fresh garlic always
Spinach
comes back.
is so easy to
Spinach,
grow.
like it's some things like
So
always come
delicious out
back.
of your own garden.
Garlic's supposed to be super easy. Like lots of other herbs. I love basil, things like that. Like to have it right there accessible.
Yeah.
And so I've been
I'm
thinking
actually going
about
to put
it
an
a little
indoor
bit.
one in the house because
I've
I
been
like
thinking about that.
having
I have a
just a
sunroom.
little cilantro and parsley
Yeah.
just for the odd
I have a
dish.
sunroom, so I've been thinking about doing that.
Well, the gardening rate has gone up in Canada since COVID.
I imagine.
But where we've seen the gardening rate go up significantly is in the Atlantic, in our own region.
Okay.
If you look at food inflation, food prices, the one region that has been hit the hardest in the last 12 months is the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So just look at some of the reports last fall.
Okay.
Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PI, always top tier.
It looks
Wow.
like today when they position, this is in November, we'll just say for transparency, but Nova Scotia is now one of the most expensive places to live,
Yes.
right? Which
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah. So taxes are high,
Yes.
but the cost of living is also very high.
Right.
And,
Where it wasn't traditionally.
And we lived, as a family, we lived in Quebec, Ontario, and Saskatchewan. I can tell you the food here in Nova Scotia is very expensive.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it's the best of quality.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Which is
quality.
why I've been I've been a bit of an advocate for more farming, more manufacturing in our province,
Right.
because everything is trucked in. Nova Scotia itself cannot feed itself.
And that, you know what? And that's kind of where I was saying to my wife is like, I'd like to be more self-sufficient. And I guess Nova Scotia needs to be more self-sufficient. Funny enough, though, is I was down in Maine in the summertime, and I actually found the Maine prices were like no different than the ones here in Nova Scotia, but they were in American.
That's right.
And I was like, whoa, almost to the point where I was like, oh, we complain about food prices and stuff in Nova
But it's
Scotia.
way worse down there, you say, eh?
Well, like, honestly, if I was saying I was buying a whole chicken for $10 here, it'd be $10 there too, except it'd be American. So then when I see it reflect on my bill, I'm like, why did I pay $14 for this chicken?
They are except you're absolutely right. I think actually a lot of people think, oh, America is cheaper. Not necessarily, but there are exceptions though. If you look at dairy products,
Yes.
typically dairy like cheese,
Right.
cheese is cheaper in the U.S. And eggs also.
okay.
I don't know if you looked at eggs, but eggs are
didn't.
typically cheaper. Yeah.
Okay.
Chicken, it's hit and miss.
Okay.
Poultry is hit and miss. Sometimes it's actually cheaper depending of the state. But we went down to Florida. I think it was 6 months ago, and we basically came to the same conclusion. Same
Interesting.
price, but in an American
totally
dollar.
different state too. So it's interesting
Yeah.
to see that's how. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so I guess will you see much of, because I mean the biggest thing now, I think like one of the big arguments that people talk about is like because everything's connected, right? Whether junk food is more expensive, more economic than some of the more healthier things that people should be buying. And
Yep.
do you see much of that? Do you have the actual data on, okay, if you were to eat healthy all the time, it's going to cost you this much more than if you were just eating junk all the time? Like,
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, we released Canada's food price report in December, and when we price, so for a family of four, you're supposed to be spending about $16,000
okay,
for the year
for groceries.
to get a healthy diet. The reality, though, is that not everyone actually does that, right? People will make compromises for a variety of reasons,
Right.
And but we do price it out. Like if you're a male between 31 to 50, this is how much you should be spending on food for a healthy diet. If you're a child, 11 years old, so it's all we break it down for everyone. So if you're like a single mom with two kids, you can actually have a good sense of how much you should be spending on food. But
Okay.
what was really fascinating, troubling, I guess, in 2023 was that people started to spend less on food
Right.
despite inflation.
So obviously they're cutting on the amount of food that
because
they're
of
eating.
because of shelter costs, and
Right.
so in a year ago, people were spending on average about $265 a month on food on average. The average Canadian was spending $265 a month.
Okay.
It's down to $255.
Wow.
So that's
Okay.
what that means. Essentially, is that people are not eating less; they're just eating
junk.
Yeah. And they'll go to the dollar store. They'll go to Giant Tiger. They'll go to non-traditional grocery
this
stores.
kind of goes back to what you were saying about the increased home prices, and people are probably now going to the most affordable solution to feed them.
Exactly.
But then we're going to have another problem, which is going to be people who are like
Obese.
Well, but you
Or
know what?
not obese, sorry, I shouldn't say, but people that are malnourished. And
Well, that's the thing, because I mean, it doesn't matter like whatever size you are.
Yeah.
Whatever's going on inside of your body from eating junk
Yes.
is, because you can be 140 pounds and be out of weight walking upstairs, or be out of breath walking upstairs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you can, whatever, vice versa kind of thing too, right?
Yeah.
There's something that's going on internally with people, right?
And the other thing about, and especially because this podcast is about beer, you probably care about food service and restaurants. I mean,
Very
this
much.
is a sector that is being slaughtered now. I'm sure you guys have noticed.
Well, we had this clothes that we've talked.
Well, we
to,
just had Jordy Morgan on here, and Jordy Morgan is now.
Oh, Jordy, yeah.
So he's the now head of or the vice president of the region for Restaurants Canada.
Is he?
He is. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
He broke the news on this podcast.
He's a wonderful guy. He's perfect for that job.
He's awesome.
So he came on. When he wrote to me, he was like, "Yeah, I have some news for you guys," and so that was pretty cool. So anyway,
now speaking of radio voice.
Perfect radio voice.
Oh, no, much better than
much better than me. Yeah,
much better than me too.
So, but it was interesting because I've been now that he's announced it, and I've been following really closely on what he's been talking about on LinkedIn. He's talking about how restaurants are how he was talking about how restaurants are making more money nationally than ever before in terms of just making more money, and yet still struggling to pay their bills.
That's the rent. That's the everything else.
That's the thing, is
labor,
it's the everything
rent,
else.
Input costs. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, now restaurants, in order to survive, in order to retain people, it's not just hey, you got to pay someone a living wage. It's now we have to pay benefits,
right?
Which restaurants weren't paying before. Now it's to attract people, to keep people. It's we'll pay your benefits, and that's all costs and stuff like that, right? So
yeah,
but it's true, and I mean, and when it comes to beer too. So you have I was reading a bunch of things that you have, and I saw it, I think, appear 3 different times where you said "free the beer." And I love that. If you're not merchandising that yet, we will.
well, you're better equipped to do that than because I mean, free the beer is all about these interprovincial barriers we have.
It's archaic.
Disgusting. Yeah.
It's archaic.
Disgusting. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I did read your article that you were talking about the beer store in Ontario.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I read it, and I enjoyed the article.
You've been to a beer store
many times.
You've never.
I don't think I've
to a
ever
beer
been,
store.
so I don't want to know.
So I've been to a lot of different liquor stores throughout the country, and I really think I would say Quebec probably does it best out of all of them.
Yeah,
very available.
Very available. They keep basically, if you want spirits or some high end wines and things like that, you got to go to the SIQ. But if you just want to go and pick up beer, or if you want to pick up just a house wine or something like that, you can go to the gas station, corner store, whatever you want. You
Same
can
as
open
Alberta, I think. Yeah, it was the same thing. Or they had the private liquor thing.
That's the thing. So the only thing why I say Quebec does it best is that when I was out in Alberta, you could literally stand in a intersection, and 3 of the corners would have a liquor store of some sorts, and it was kind of okay, it's a little bit redundant at this point, right? We need a little bit of that mixture between the two, just so that's not completely everywhere. Because then you'd lose people, right?
You would.
I do think that there needs to be a little bit more freedom.
What's absolutely ridiculous with the beer store model in Ontario is that it's Labatt's, Molson, and Sleeman who actually own the beer store, and they're all foreign owned now.
That's right.
They're all foreign owned.
All huge conglomerates.
It's a beer cartel, essentially, owned by companies who are not even in Canada or control in Canada or by Canadians anymore. So that's really the most ridiculous thing. And of course, we're about to hear from the Ford government whether or not they're going to be granting another 10-year deal to support the beer store. So we're still waiting for that. So we'll see what happens.
I think that being said too, though, I'm not a huge fan of the NSLC and how they do things. Not really. No.
I love it.
Really?
No.
Okay, good. Yeah, because honestly, again, it's kind of restricts that freedom and things like that.
Right.
And
and we had a guest on this show, a brewer starting out.
Right.
And he walked us through the process of just getting a SKU, just getting a beer on the shelf. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think I would have the dexterity to go
There's.
through
I
it.
mean, I'm from Quebec.
Yes.
You're married to a Quebecer.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard it. I mean, it's the Rock, the rest of Canada.
Yes, the Rock.
And
yeah.
in particular, I'd say that both Nova Scotia and Ontario, they have a really bizarre relationship with alcohol. I mean, it's bizarre. Like in Ontario specifically, Ontario is really bizarre because with alcohol, it's very restrictive. They're very tentative in terms of how they want to make sure that beer and alcohol are available.
Right.
But on the cannabis front, it's just
Free for all.
free for all.
Yeah.
Oh, is it ever? Yeah.
In Quebec,
The
with
opposite.
alcohol, it's the opposite.
The opposite, yeah.
You know, you need to be 21 to. You can't have your plants at home.
Yeah, so
Really?
it's
Oh, you can't do that.
18. It's 18 for drinking in Quebec, but
But
higher.
it's 21
21.
for
For
cannabis.
cannabis.
Interesting.
In Nova Scotia, I think it's a work in progress. I think they know that they may want to change, but they're not sure. But I'd say that because of the amount of new people we have in our province, which in my view is great. I mean, we need more people in this province.
100%,
They're
yeah.
going to bring a different take.
Yeah.
I'd say collectively on how we actually promote and sell alcohol overall. Yeah.
It's funny, like I kind of have two mindsets in a little way when it comes to that, because on one hand, I understand that the 21 age range for cannabis comes with some science to back it up in terms of brain development and all that
Right.
stuff.
That is true.
So that I get. That being said, though, I'm also of the mindset that once you're 18, you're an adult. You can make decisions, you can vote, and all this stuff. You kind of should be able to just make your own dumb decisions if you want to.
In a sense, yeah.
Right?
You almost need to get it out of your system a bit.
Well, a little bit of that, right? So
little-
it's almost like,
little
hold
and-
on here. I can
and
go
grow
and
up and
die
figure
for my
it out.
country, fight in wars, and I can vote and pay taxes and all this other stuff. It's like, but I can't go and like have a THC drink. It's like, give me a break.
It's funny because when I was at RMC in Kingston, we had some exchanges with West Point. You know, I don't know if you guys are familiar with West Point in Virginia.
Oh, absolutely,
It's their
yeah.
mill call. It's their
Yeah.
military college. So we went there 1 week, and they came here 1 week.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yep. And so in Ontario, where I was, it was the drinking age was 19. In the U.S., it was 21. So we saw Americans coming
Right.
to Canada for 1 week drinking beer for the first time.
Wow.
Canadian beer.
Pump it up.
And they realized, oh my goodness, I want to move here.
That's right.
Because the beer in the U.S. is just, oh my God.
I won't completely shoot it down because they have some really great craft
They
breweries.
do, yeah.
They do?
They do. They
Yeah.
have some great.
I've never
craft
had
breweries.
it.
Honestly,
Yeah.
they do. There's certain.
But the
scenes-
highly commercialized
highly
beer,
commercial stuff is absolute garbage. It is.
Yeah.
It's true. But they do have some really great breweries. Like some of my favorite breweries actually come from the U.S. Like I've talked about before. Dogfish Head is from Delaware.
The one in
I've
Chicago, the Goose. What's
Goose Island,
Goose
yeah.
Island's fairly popular.
Well, Goose Island, yeah, I've
That's
had
pretty.
it.
That's
actually
popular
very
there
good.
and everything.
Yeah.
But like
That's
Dogfish
true.
Head's really good. Rogue over in Oregon is really good.
Yeah.
Or like Oregon actually is like the hop capital of North America. So they actually have a lot
Really?
of breweries that come out of there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna we were gonna go there. My wife and I were gonna go there in the summer solely based on the fact that I want to try a bunch of the breweries there.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a good spot, honestly, if you want to check out. Like, don't if you go to some of the cities and things like that, but check out some of the some of that area.
You should be the beer professor.
Honestly,
He's working his way.
Seriously, I'm working my way there. I don't know if you can convince Dalhousie to give me a job. I know a lot about. I once taught a scientist something about brewing, so you never know.
You did? Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so,
I
yeah.
can see that. I can see that.
I love this stuff, but so one article that I read about that I wanted to just straight up ask you about it is because you had an article last year, like 2022, in the fall.
Jeez,
and
you did your
it was-
research.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and it was, are Canadians drinking too much? So
Yeah.
I have to ask you this question on this podcast.
Ooh.
So are Canadians drinking too much?
Well, I mean, I don't believe so.
Right answer.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
But I think there is some science around how alcohol is impacting health. I think what's going on is that some people may trivialize how alcohol is affecting their health, and I think we all know that alcohol is a problem for some people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And and of course there's also this momentum towards labeling alcohol as cancerous, and of course the WHO has actually looked into this matter and is really pushing the agenda around labeling alcohol as cancerous. And I'm a bit concerned about that, because as soon as you do that, you're just basically creating this silo, this perception that this product should be forbidden from society. And frankly, when you look at the history of beer, of alcohol, I mean, we go back thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, 6,000 years. Yeah.
And again, food and drinks and alcohol, it's about traditions. It's about I just can't see how people can watch a hockey game without beer. I mean, it's just
the social element is one of the most important things in the world.
Exactly. And what brings people together? It's food and drinks.
So I can't remember the university, but there was a university that did some research on this, and I thought it was quite interesting. And they put people into 3 categories: people who abstained, people who drank moderately, and people who abused. The funny thing that came about it was the people who abstained lived shorter lives than even the people who abused.
I believe it.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and find it. I don't have it here. I wasn't really planning on bringing it up, but
it makes sense though.
But that's one of the things. And but the people who drank moderately lived the longest. Yeah. And I think it's just like, as we know, like, I know there's alcohol and it obviously has a certain effect on it and things like effect on your body and everything. However, with beer specifically, since that's what we're drinking, there's tons of minerals. There's vitamins in it. It's filled with electrolytes. There's tons of things in there. There's a group of monks in Bavaria that drink only dark beer for all of the period of Lent and survive off of just beer. Breakfast, lunch, supper.
Really?
Yeah.
I need to go there.
Yeah. The grocery bill will go way down, but the beer bill goes way up.
But like as you said, I mean, I think it's important to recognize that alcohol has a rich tradition, and I don't see society without alcohol at all. But we also need to be responsible,
100%,
as much as possible, and we teach our kids exactly that. But I'm a bit concerned about what's going on in society with food. I mean, we tend to create like categories.
Yes.
You're either this or that.
Right.
And so either we need to tell people that this is dangerous and that is dangerous. I mean, essentially everything can cause cancer. If you really think about it, if you consume too much of something, it will affect your health.
Do you mind if I ask you, I mean, being a food professor, knowing food more than any, how do you eat? Like, I mean, you don't have to share every single ugly detail, but just in general, do you have a pyramid you kind of promote in your head?
I mean, I'm certainly an omnivore for sure.
Yes.
I enjoy meat. This weekend, as a family, we had raclette. You probably know what raclette is.
Sure do.
Yeah,
I have it.
Raclette is
the best way to eat.
It's the best. It's you cook your own food as you eat it.
on the
on
raw
the grill
or whatever. Yes,
exactly.
Okay.
So as a family, we just put food and we drink wine, and it's just really a nice meal. And so
slows you down. Actually, slows you down.
Yep.
You socialize.
Not eating so fast.
Yeah. So like, just fun fact: our Christmas Eve family tradition is raclette.
Is it?
And what we do is we open the stockings, like we do like $20 gifts.
Okay.
And we give out the $20 gifts as we're doing raclette. So everyone's just eating. It takes like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Just because you're slowing down.
Because whenever we have guests over at our place, you can tell that they're really accustomed to meals that last less than an hour.
Right.
And so that's why we have fondue and raclette, and most people just don't, when they come to our place, they just don't know what these things are.
Sure.
And they realize after 3 hours that they're still sitting at the dinner table for the first time in many years,
Yes, yeah.
which is great.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, food is, I'm not a perfect, like all my meals aren't raclette,
No.
but
Do you go to McDonald's?
of course I do. Of course I do. Yeah, absolutely. And with my kids, I'm a bad dad.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, I think it's absolutely fine to go to McDonald's once in a while.
Of course, yeah.
I don't think it's fine to go to McDonald's every day.
Of course not.
You know.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say.
Common sense. You've never exercised. Have you ever exercised like a keto diet yourself or other things?
No. I'm just I eat anything.
Yeah.
In fact, when I go to a restaurant, fun fact for you, I never order off the menu. I actually give the menu back to the waiter or waitress, and they pick for me all the time.
Oh, so you let them pick.
Yep. Yep. So the
Okay.
reason why I do that, and it's just they know their kitchen. They know what they want my
They might
business.
be proficient at just a few things. And
Does that only work
What's the
when
best thing you
when
make?
it's you though? Because if I do, I'm like, I'm not going to read your menu. Just order something, and then they're going to come back and be like, I don't know, this weird guy just like told me to just pick something. So
It's just-
make a mac and cheese.
I must
get a
say,
hot dog.
reactions will vary. I mean,
Okay.
it's like sometimes people will say, "Oh my God, I can't do this for you. It's too much pressure." And sometimes you'll get, "Oh, that's exciting. I'll ask the chef." And they bring me a plate, a dish that's not even on the menu
Oh, I love that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
to try things out, you know?
Yeah, I go with the special. I usually just see what's special because I just don't like reading the whole menu. So what's the special?
But I must say I've never been disappointed.
Yeah.
And one time in Ontario, I was told I can't do it. Like the waiter just didn't want to do it, so
Oh,
I had to
okay.
pick. I had to pick. Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. I like
That's a
being
cool
surprised.
idea.
I like food. I mean,
So
I'm not
basically,
too
I just
picky.
say surprise me, and I'm always surprised, and it's always positive and really.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's great.
I love that.
Yeah.
The
I don't do that for beer though.
No.
Like Nine Locks, I must
Yes.
say.
So shout out to Nine Locks. I don't know.
Yeah.
We
No, we
will
didn't
say
talk
that at
about
the
it,
beginning of the episode, but we're
Yeah,
here
but
again.
We are here, Nine Locks. We're drinking our IPAs.
Yeah, it is my favorite. So thank you, gentlemen, for hosting me at
Oh,
Nine
that's-
Locks because it is my
Your
favorite.
Your favorite beer spot.
It is my favorite beer
a
spot.
great
Yeah.
one. And this new location is beautiful. So.
I've never actually drank beer here at this new location.
really?
No,
Okay.
this is
Oh,
my
yeah.
first. Yeah.
There you go. That's awesome.
Typically, I just pick up what I
Swing it
need
in and go.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I was at Namac Tavern last night and had two of their IPAs last night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you guys live in the area?
No.
No, we live across the bridge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm
I
in
live pretty
Prospect.
far out.
He's out in
Catch Harbor.
Catch Harbor. So,
Okay.
Yeah, good ways.
My wife is a part-time teacher, so she teaches at Carrefour, and we live right
oh,
next
okay.
to Carrefour. So,
Nice.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's nice. It's super easy. My wife teaches at Marymount.
Marymount, okay.
Yeah, so she does,
Okay.
grade 3.
Cool
Marymount.
stuff. Cool
Yeah.
stuff.
So the a couple other things too that I was kind of reading about that you were talking
I'm really
about.
impressed with your research, I'll be honest.
Thanks.
Jeez.
There was an article that I really want you to talk about because I actually find some of this stuff fascinating. Is you were talking about public perception about GMOs, and
Yes.
I'd love you to kind of give a quick little spiel about
Ooh,
some of that and
yes,
your
okay,
thought about
cool.
that stuff. I
Yeah.
love that. Right?
Great.
Yeah, genetic engineering is a bit misunderstood. It's been, I guess, the agenda was taken over by a lot of activists, unfortunately, and some people just decided to kind of basically promote the negative aspect of genetic engineering, and of course. In doing so, you saw things like the GMO Project. Do you guys go to the grocery store and sometimes you see the logo GMO Project?
Yeah. Okay.
The non-GMO
and then you see the
project?
non-GMO. Yeah.
The non
Right,
So this is the result of the lack of communication toward the public about genetic engineering.
Yeah.
You'll see the non-GMO Project slapped on oranges, on bottled water.
Coffee. I've seen it on
And
everything.
coffee,
Yep, yep.
and of course, there's no genetic engineered coffee or oranges. And so they've taken advantage of this huge knowledge void in the public and sell the idea that this is dangerous stuff. The science, when you actually look at the science, there's risks are incredibly limited. We've actually, since 1994, we've been eating genetic engineered ingredients.
Wow.
Without knowing.
Yeah, for sure.
Without knowing. So it's been for...
Well, I mean, many fruits are genetically engineered.
Yeah, like bananas. Bananas are supposed to have seeds in them.
Yeah.
So basically, I would say that there's been a lot of propaganda against the research, and I've been really concerned about that because I think at the end of the day, genetic engineering is actually making our food cheaper, more affordable.
Right.
It could be for a benefit.
Yeah, it's making our agriculture more effective, more efficient. And when, in fact, actually in fall, I was again in Ottawa talking about Ukraine.
Oh no, thank you.
And talking about Ukraine and because we need to rebuild Ukraine.
Well, and also because Ukraine, this is probably why our beer is so expensive. They're the fourth largest exporter of grain in the world, is what I heard.
Yeah, exactly.
So another reason why Canadian two-row whatever is like up the...
Yeah. So
grain's going up.
So, and I think when you look at the output in Canada, the U.S., other parts of the world, you can see that really genetic engineering has actually served our planet quite well. And so I'm just hoping that at some point the propaganda will stop. And frankly, I'm very hopeful because Europe is very anti-GMO. I mean, I remember I gave a lecture in Vienna once on GMOs.
Yeah.
I'm an academic. I'm not exciting. I mean, the room, because I was actually talking about Monsanto, which was bought by
the big one.
Yeah, the big one, which it was bought by BASF a few years ago. And I spent a week at Monsanto, and my talk was about a week at Monsanto. The room was packed, 400 people, and they actually had to set up a television next door to accommodate more people, because I was this mean guy, this guy that
evil.
spent a week in the belly of the beast, and talking about Monsanto, and of course my views are favorable to Monsanto but most people don't know much about Syngenta, Monsanto, BASF. I mean, they do a lot of good work. And so that's when I realized there's a lot of people fed really just misinformation.
So where's the fear come from? Like, obviously when information gets out, they have to have a shred of some sort of truth, right?
Yeah.
And then they exploit whatever it is. Not talking about this specifically, just saying in general, there's, one picture of something and then they blast it everywhere.
I mean, most people don't know that about 75% of everything we buy at the grocery store would have a genetically engineered ingredient.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
That's pretty common though. If you think
It's pretty common.
Everything that you
so
have.
I can sense from your reaction that you're not too concerned about that. It's just the way of life.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are concerned, and that's why I've always said
And they just want to get their food from the earth feeling.
Exactly.
That's the
biologists would be against genetic engineering because they say, well, you're basically just playing around with nature.
Right.
Genetic engineering is about crossing genes that wouldn't cross naturally in nature. That's basically what genetic engineering is. So it happens in the lab. The Aquabounty salmon is a classic case of how people rejected the technology, because you basically saw the Aquabounty salmon to me was a really great creation. Instead of taking 3 years to grow a salmon, it takes 18 months.
Right, yeah.
40%. So you reduce the cost to produce salmon by 40%.
and the resources.
And the resources.
Yes.
It left Canada, as you know. It left PI because all grocers rejected the technology.
Meanwhile, everybody loves corn. The first
People eat corn.
The most popular GMO of all time.
very
Corn was not
irrational.
edible. Was it late 1800s or early 1900s?
Yeah, so
Corn
it's
was
very
possibly-
it's very irrational,
Yeah.
and so that's why when I look at some of these issues, I go, yeah, it's not consistent,
Right.
And that's why I've always believed that we need to label the presence. If you label the presence, you demystify the whole thing. You allow consumers to befriend the enemy, if you will.
One thing I do try to do in my own household is I try to not promote anything that's hyper processed, and I don't know why I do that. I mean, but it's something that just that scares me.
What's hyper process?
Hyper processed would be like any grain that was absolutely pulverized to make
Or do you just
crackers.
mean like meats and stuff?
No, hyper processed meats too, like salamis and stuff. Maybe on occasion. I actually love salamis and pepperonis
So
and
do
things
I.
like that myself.
Cured
personally.
meats, amazing.
I love cured meats, but I try to eat them in moderation because I'm fearful if I ate them too much, they'll hurt me.
Of course.
Hyper processed
Yeah.
foods like the crackers and the chips and things that just have a bunch of. But is that? I mean, I don't. Sometimes you just believe these things, but you don't really know.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And do you see a danger with hyper processed foods in your own mind, or do you kind of feel like in moderation, like everything else?
They exist for a reason. They offer convenience.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, we have modern lives. I mean, ideally, we would love to have the time to cook all the time,
Yes.
to grow our food all the time. But the reality is that we have
Limited
jobs,
time, right.
we have responsibilities, we have kids, we want to travel, we do all sorts of things, and so. To me, I've never been against ultra processed food because they actually serve a purpose. And let's face it, they came into the market in the 60s and 70s. Why? Because women left the home. Women played an economic role.
Right.
And that's, I think, what we need. We need women to play a valuable economic role in our economy.
Right.
And so I hate to say this, I'll drop a bomb on your podcast. I actually
fun.
do
I
think
love
that
this.
anybody who says that they're against ultra processed foods
Yeah.
are discriminating against people who are stuck raising children at home.
Oh, that's a spicy meatball.
And a lot of them are women.
That's
fair.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fair.
I'll take it.
So, and there's science behind that
No, that's
too. I'm
good.
not just saying
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But there is science. That
I can see that. That's an interesting
Yeah.
philosophical debate. Yeah.
So that's why we have to ask these questions.
Exactly.
I'm sure
if
there's
you
a lot
want
of
to cook
people
all the
think-
time,
Yeah.
who does the cooking? And so naturally, you'll force women to go back to.
I do most of the cooking in my home, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, I
Looks
work
like you're
full-time
quitting.
and I cook. Yeah,
It looks like you're quitting your job and going back home.
With the kids just eat crackers, by the way.
Yeah. But also with GMO,
Damn.
do you think that like GMO and like this type of stuff could be almost like unlocking world hunger? Like, is there a way that we could learn to kind of change these things if we can grow meat and all this stuff? Like, because obviously some of the biggest parts of like unclean water and
Right.
and meat and things like that in some of the third world countries and stuff. It's not a fact that we can't get things to them. Can't get things. It's like we can get food and water to people everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
It's the fact that like it's just not sustainable. We have to be able to grow and like grow things there, and you can't grow things in the desert. And but if we can do this essentially like in a lab, in a trailer or something like that, like this could solve world hunger.
But biotechnologies are impacting or are empowering farmers. Look at the U.S. last year in 2023. It was funny because in August, I follow headlines around agriculture a lot. And in August, Bloomberg announced that corn harvest is going to be disastrous this year or in 2023. 2 months later, record crop, bumper crop.
Oh, really?
Okay.
And corn is genetically modified. And
Yes.
so they thought that the drought would impact output, but they underestimated the technology that would actually allow farmers to increase yields despite the lack of moisture. And so, and so they did very well overall. And I don't think you couldn't have actually gotten a bumper crop without the research and the biotechnology. It wouldn't have happened. Yeah. And so that corn will serve the entire planet.
Yeah.
You know? So, and those are stories that most people don't understand. They don't understand when they buy food, there's probably corn in it or corn syrup.
Corn is in everything.
Oh, corn's in everything.
And a lot of different things. And it allows companies to process food, make food as cheap as possible.
Yeah. I text my stepdaughter, cousins, corn is in everything all the time, just for a joke. It's a silly joke that I had because I made them watch a YouTube video once.
That's right.
Just for fun. And it's just funny. So I hashtag corn is there everything, and I send it to them randomly. That's awesome. Just for a joke. And they roll their eyes or whatever.
So I have, before we, I know we got to pack this up here, and I got two questions for you. One's a quick, easy one that I want you to solve an argument.
Oh, gosh.
It's a quick and easy one.
Oh, quick and easy?
Yeah, quick and easy. MSG. It's fantastic, right? Nothing wrong with it, right?
Oh, yeah, I love MSG.
I love MSG. It tastes delicious. It's so great, and yet people are so terrified of it. Can you clear that up and tell everybody that I'm right, that it's fine?
It's fine if you want to believe it. Sure.
Yeah.
That's a fair thing to say.
But it does, I mean, there's some research suggesting that it does impact your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, in negative ways. But, I mean, I'm not up to date on that research, to be honest. But MSGs are certainly making some people feel concerned.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't concern me.
Yeah.
Like you.
Yeah.
But it concerns some people.
Yeah. Because it tastes awesome.
Good question.
So the last thing I want to end on is a little bit not food or beer related, but it was an article that I read that I think is very interesting, and I think it's actually really recent that it came out, that I just wanted you to talk about because I think it's a hot topic. And that is when you talked about plastic elimination policies.
Yes.
I think that just came out recently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'd love to hear more about that. I read the article, but obviously people who didn't read the article, if you don't mind just doing a quick little kind of talk about that, like, and kind of filling in what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, no. So I think, we're addicted to plastics.
Yeah.
I think we should at least recognize that. But it's the tone, the approach that some governments are taking to get us to a different place. And I've criticized the feds in their approach. So they basically created this policy that actually forces all regulations to consider all plastics as toxic, and that's not necessarily the case. I mean, for the feds, all plastics are created equal, and they're not. The other thing that I really became quite concerned about is that they were implementing all these changes in Canada as if our own country it operates in isolation when it comes to food. But we do import a lot of food from California, from Arizona.
Right.
Farmers, they use packaging. And if you start implementing the changes to single-use plastics in Canada, well, guess what's going to happen? The farmers in California and Arizona, they're going to say, you know what, Canada? I'm sorry. We're going to ship else. We're going to sell elsewhere. And that would actually push prices higher. And I've always been concerned about that. And so I'm all for eliminating plastics, but we need to be extremely careful of how it will impact food affordability, the waste. 'Cause there's a reason why plastics are being used.
Right.
It's the cheapest way to reduce waste and keep prices down as much as possible.
Right.
Okay? Yeah. So to allow some technologies to develop over time, we need time. Essentially. And so it's important to really allow people to understand that they do have options. And right now they just don't. And so, I mean, do you remember when COVID started? What was your friendly place? What was your friendly thing? It was plastic bags, plastic this. Nobody wanted to touch anything. You weren't allowed to touch anything. Yeah. And in Australia, they went ahead with these changes without clamshells for strawberries. And guess what? Some people were putting needles in strawberries and blueberries, and people. I don't think anybody got hurt because they noticed the needles. But can you imagine? Risks are very different.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Well,
yeah.
Well, you know what? That was my last thing. I just wanted to throw there because I thought it was pretty interesting because it does obviously have an impact of food and the cost and everything. So, honestly, this was really great. Thank you very much for coming on and taking the time.
Thank you for the invitation. It's great.
And we want to plug your podcast, The Food Professor.
Yes.
It's the Food Professor. Thank you. Produced by Michael LeBlanc, who's my producer and a very good friend.
Nice.
And it's a weekly podcast.
It's really fun to listen to, and you'd be surprised actually how fun it is to listen to. You guys get along really great. Similar to this show in nature, it's a fun, spirited conversation about food.
Yeah.
And
unlike you guys, we're never face to face though. We've done 150 episodes, but I think we've done 2 or 3 episodes face to face.
Oh dear. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I know you got to run, but you have 5 books published. Are there any more coming out?
8, actually.
8?
Yeah.
Hey, whoops, 8 books published.
Well, 4 in English, 4 in French.
Oh, okay. There you
That's
go.
what
Is there anything coming out in 2024 we should be looking out for?
No. I'm just released my latest one in French on food geopolitics.
Okay.
But I'm taking a break in 2024.
Okay.
He's going to work on getting me that beer professor job at Dalhousie.
There you go. Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
One more quick cheers, guys.
Yeah, we'll do a quick cheers.
All right. End the show. Cheers.
Take care.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah.